Hi everybody, this is Raconter1, otherwise known as Jack, and I thought I'd give you my next installment in the vlog of cars that I've owned. And up first is going to be the 1964 Dodge Dart GT Convertible. Now this car I bought brand new right off the showroom floor in 1964, and it was bright red and had a red interior and black trim along the side and black vinyl top. The top itself was a mechanical top, so you had two releases, one on either side, and you pushed the top down. It was spring-loaded, counterbalanced, so it wasn't any big deal to push it down. And there were two plastic retainers that kept it in place, so it was trouble-free and didn't have to worry about any hydraulic pumps or anything like that going bad, so it worked well. The car had a 225 slant 6 engine and had the 3-speed TorqueFlite automatic and push-button controls for that on the dash. That was the last year for push-button controls for the TorqueFlite. And it had no power equipment, no power brakes, no power steering. But the GT trim included bucket seats, and they were vinyl covered. And trim on the middle part of the hood, there was like a power bulge there in the middle that was trimmed in chrome, and also trim along the back edge of the trunk lid. And that was about it. There wasn't a lot of differentiation between the GT and the 270. They also made a convertible in the 270 line, and there was also a 170 but no convertible in that line. This was the top engine that they had at the time, because they didn't introduce the 273 V8 until springtime, and I bought this earlier than that. So it was a nice, pretty sporty car for the time, and that car was geared pretty low, in low gear, so when you took off you really had some, it was no slouch. And that 225 was a pretty powerful engine with lots of torque. It was essentially the same as the 170, but it had a longer stroke. The bore was the same, but the stroke was longer, and so it had more low-end torque. And as far as the car went, it was good, but I might point out some defects that it had, and all cars had defects, I'm sure, at the time, but the number one defect on this car was the upholstery. They tried to be fancy and had patterns sewn into the vinyl. Now, when they sewed a thread into vinyl, it essentially made a weak spot where the needle entered the vinyl. So over a period of time, and it wasn't very long time either, these seats would split along this patterned sewing. So it was a warranty deal. They replaced the upholstery on the front two bucket seats because they both suffered from that problem. The back seat, because it was never used, never developed the problem. Another thing that I noticed about this car is that the red upholstery inside would change color, and so when you looked at the upholstery in the back original seat and compared it to the upholstery on the doors and on the around the rest of the car, you could see different shades of red appearing. So it appeared to me that the plastic of the time didn't have much resistance to fading from ultraviolet. Another nagging problem with this car was the radio, and this was typical of these cars, these early transistor radios, in my experience, the doggone radio just stopped working. So again, another warranty issue. They issued a repair order, and I took it to a radio repair place. They took the radio out and fixed it and then put it back in, and no problem with it after that. But this radio was an AM push button type radio. No FM radios were around at the time, at least not on Dodge products. And other than that, I had a little misfortune one time and scraped the side of the car getting into a parking space, and turns out that I cut it a little too close, and the rear quarter kind of made a dent there, and so that required attention. Didn't hurt the other car at all. The other car, that was it. The little paint on the bumper, that was it. That was the only problem with that car. And then I made the misfortune of taking it over to New York City and parking in a parking garage where they park the car for you. Well, I retrieved the car, and when I made a stop on the Garden State Parkway, I got out of the car after I paid the toll and walked around the side, and that side was smashed in. So evidently the parking attendant had a little problem with my car at the parking garage. I knew that would be a useless thing to go back to the garage, so I thought, well, here we go. So I had that repaired again, and this time the whole car painted. But when I did that, that paint job did not last. For some reason or other, that red just faded right away, and so became a real serious reason to get rid of the car. I kept it for 4 years. Towards the end of that time, I took good care, mechanical care of the car, and I noticed that the oil light came on and stayed on a bit and then went off, and I thought, gee, what could that be? And I replaced the sensor, figuring it was the oil sending unit, and no, the light still came on. So I figured there's something wrong here. And on these cars, they had a crankcase ventilator valve at the rear end of the valve cover. It's a little valve that runs on engine vacuum, pulls vapors out of the valve cover area and goes back to the carburation area. And somehow, always check this valve to make sure that take the assembly off and shake it, and if it rattles, then it's free. Well, I always did that, but for some reason or other, gunk had built up and the valve didn't rattle. So found out that the sludge had built up in the bottom of the that oil pan, and evidently was obstructing the screen there at the oil pump. So I figured, well, there's another good reason to trade. So I eventually traded that car after 4 years for a '68 Dodge Coronet 500 hardtop. And that will be the subject of my next vlog. So hope you enjoyed it. Overall, the car was pretty sporty and performed well. No trouble mechanically with it as long as I had it. But that little minor things went wrong with it. So I'll see you later. Thank you everybody for watching all these videos, and for subscribing, and for commenting. I sure appreciate it. It makes this work worthwhile. Thanks a lot.